And we are live. Welcome, everyone. I Need Living Conversations, 208th session that we get together with Blue Heron Woman, who is in Indianola, Oklahoma. I'm Julian Catari, sitting in Jalapa, Veracruz. And today we are talking about indigenous economical relations or indigenous relational economies. And it's going to be a great conversation. And Blue Heron Woman just said that this is foundational in Aloha Nidao Living's structure. So she's going to enlighten us why that is and why is this so important and how we're applying this indigenous knowledge into a fruitful, earth-grounded project that we can participate in. So it's not just about words. We got to make it happen. We got to shift. We got to become the seed of the new world that we want to see. So welcome everyone to this process and to this birthing process. Say the word again. Everything's a process and it's a long process.
It is.
And it's never over. And there's so much to learn, to go over. And so it's going to be, the process is going to continue, but make sure you're not getting stuck. Make sure you are continuing forward. And if you can let us know that you are here watching this, please do so. By the way, we just reached 260 followers. And
I was.
did you get a mail about that? Yeah. Which is, it's great that we have more followers, but you know what I'm worried about? I've had this thing with the number 260. Like once it gets there, it likes to stay there for a while. So like, I would be happy if we get past 260, right? We get a lot more. But
well, considering that we didn't do any marketing, and people would say, well, but you've been doing this since COVID, since 2020, so it's taken you 5 years for 260 followers. I would say that these are true followers. These are not just.
Yeah. And then they need to become even more true. And let us know if they're true followers. Please leave a comment, leave us something.
Yeah, well, but isn't it interesting that we've reached this point on Rumble with 260 followers with 260 days in a Chalkish cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know that my measurement for this is the more the closer you are to something good and real, kind of the smaller the audience.
Exactly.
So I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm no longer hurt by seeing very few people. But then, like you say, it's there. Whoever is there, if it's not 260, if it's 2 or 60 or whatever, but they're really there. That's the difference. That's the difference, because they really also share this, and this is unique. We're still, we wish this was a massive shift, and everybody likes to talk about this being something that everybody's falling, and no, not everybody. It's very few of us still. That's my sincere. But that doesn't mean that this is not spreading, that this is not growing. And the way I see it now, it's the only way that we can go. It's the only way, because capitalism.
It really is.
So it's just a matter of time until folks realize that. And
well, it's like Stefan Burns, the geophysicist, said in the first video I listened to him from him a few months ago, that said, well, pretty much our only hope is to return to the hunter-gatherer societies, which is what we're doing.
Right. And but with all the information that we've gathered from, we're still the epitome of humanity. We're not going to lose that.
Yeah.
We got to understand that hunting, that gathering, that having this relationship with Mother Earth is more advanced than this stuff we're living right now.
Yeah. Yeah. With Mother Earth, with all our more than human life world, with each other. Each other. For one thing, that's the biggest part, is with each other. So this is segueing exactly into tonight, which is Indigenous economics, with living well by developing relationships. And this is what this Saturn retrograde has been all about. And going forward in, as he's now in forward motion through the constellation of the fish, Pisces, the ocean, is dissolving everything to realize that your boat has probably 10,000 holes in it and you're going to sink if you don't do something different. And the first time in 30 years, so this is a 30-year cycle. And so living well by developing relationships. This is absolutely the Saturnian theme for these next 2.5 years.
Okay.
Through Pisces, through the constellation of the fish. And yes, what you were talking about before we went live is, this is why I've been led to correlate the constellations with the clan mothers. And we're going to get into this, probably not tonight, next week, about correlating the planets with the grandfather values for harmonious living, which is a living science. It always has been a living science, but we're transforming the face of this living science in art. So anyway, let's continue on here. Living well is the English translation of vivir bien in the Andean countries, where the indigenous languages use sumac causai. Is that right?
Sumac causai in Quechua, yeah.
Yes. Sumac.
Or suma. Like it can be a very aired suma. Or you just leave it as an A at the end, suma.
Or you can be like German and be like
No, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be the right sound.
No, suma. Suma. Okay. Suma.
Spanish J.
Okay, so we'll take the C off of that. So sumac causai, or suma quamanya, which would be Aymara.
Yeah.
And other words. So this living well means supporting and enhancing relationships that include the natural world as well as humans. Living well, then, is the exact opposite of progress or development. The destruction of nature and social relations is not what indigenous peoples desire, and does not encompass well-being for all beings. While an increase in material standard of living as measured by commodities is seen as good, it is worth having only if all beings flourish as a result. And this is what Dr. Violdo teaches, that he learned from the lineage of Incan healers, is that, and shamans, is that if you want something, you got to dream it into being for everyone, for every single being in the world, and yourself last. Right? So living well consists of actions that strengthen humanity's relational goods formed by relationships with nature and with each other. The added value of improved relationships can include additional material goods and services, so long as the additional material income or money income is shared with all beings in the relationships. So the goal or intention of good living is to increase the value of all relationships without harming them. To clarify further, we need to describe relationships. So persons in a relationship focus on forming and sharing relational goods that allow them to act in their mutual interest. Relational goods are trust, cooperation, and peace, and more, and similar primarily subject subjective things that contribute to social ability. When nature is included, the more than human life world, the relational goods create a sense of stewardship that in turn promotes high productivity of the land, ecological resilience to external shocks, and the flourishing of all species. So in contrast, then we can say that development or progress that we know of is the promotion of living poorly through the creation of relational bad, such as distrust, resistance to cooperation, war among humans, and the loss of biodiversity. Those last two being the most profound.
Mm-hmm.
Living poorly, so that is, while we adore all these global elites, they are absolutely living poorly. There is not one single one of them that knows how to live richly.
That's totally it. That's what everybody needs to hear. And realize we're being led by the worst.
Well, I mean, and it goes back to what we were talking about the last 2 weeks about the sensing in our bodies. We put absolute faith in these men and sometimes women now who put on black robes as judges, and yet they are so living poorly that they cannot tell the difference in their bodies between a bad feeling about a human or a bad and the sense of hunger.
Mm. Yeah.
Is that living richly or is that living poorly?
Mm-hmm.
That's extremely living poorly. I mean, extremely living poorly.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they know that.
No, they don't know that. They're all unconscious of that.
Because sometimes when I see the things they do, for example, to indigenous communities that they're very few that are kind of living well, and then they get attacked by this whatever situation, and I'm like, it almost looks like they envy them, and so that they can't stand them having a good life.
Yeah.
And so they got to destroy it.
Well, that's exactly it. That goes to our interoceptive system. And the total disconnection. I'm laughing because I took a sip of tea and a bunch of it spilled, and there was a kitty on my lap, and it spilled on the kitty, and the kitty was just being silly. Oh my God, I'm sensing water. Yeah, no, it's absolutely, Julian. That is absolutely a case of jealousy, where they right, which is not a felt. It is a mental state of, oh my God, they're doing so much better than I've got to.
And then
Yeah, because I wear black robes and I'm a person of authority.
Yeah.
Right? This is all this whole really huge or really bigger picture is really starting to tie in for me. So relational goods then are trust, cooperation, and peace, and much more than that. And similar, primarily subjective things that contribute to social ability. When nature is included, again, I know I said this, the relational goods create a sense of stewardship that promotes high productivity of the land, ecological resilience to external shocks, and the flourishing of all species. So then development is the promotion of poor living. And we've had the promotion of poor living for how many thousands of years now? Poor living. Colonizer settlers promoted poor living.
Yeah.
Puritanism that populated America is absolutely poor living. Living poorly means not caring for the quality of life of all beings that form relationships with humans. Standard economics defines wealth as the ownership of sources of commodities, which is usually physical and financial capital, valued in monetary terms. And an individual's wealth is his or her net worth. So, yeah, so an economist could come in here and say, well, you have this many female cows that are capable of producing, and this many female goats that are capable of producing, and this many female pigs that are capable of producing. So therefore your net worth is this, because according to our computer projections, which are based on units, they will absolutely give birth. They will absolutely produce this, because not allowing at all for the state of nature.
Mm-hmm.
So some indigenous peoples have urged a different definition of wealth. People are wealthy who have many strong relationships with each other and with all persons in the landscape. So I am very wealthy because I have a very strong relationship with all my animals.
Yeah. Wow.
Not so much with my plants and with the plants and trees, because I haven't so much developed that. I've been very mechanical in that, but that's okay. I'm learning. I'm still learning. So, the economy of affection. The economy of affection. Which, yeah, we'll go into that more, because our biggest wound is our thinking we can't love and be loved. This is the economy of affection. Has a strong subjective component based on the feeling of community, resulting from participation in making and sharing relational goals. Broadly defined wealth then includes the relatedness and health of all beings in the landscape, the Earth, and even the galaxy and the entire universe of multiple galaxies, which is why we're starting our solar calendar, our true calendar right now, because Grandfather Sun is moving through galactic center, where when you train the high-powered telescope, you can see thousands of other suns, so thousands of other galaxies. So indigenous peoples like the Navajo refer to this as balance or beauty. Any policy then should support relationships at all levels, with these relationships and the trust that they create replacing the ways that nation states and their markets enforce people to act as isolated, solitary individuals, unable to coordinate what needs to be done at all levels. And that's truly, as we went through the shock and awe doctrine, we saw that there's no ability to coordinate at different levels. With privatization. There's just none. So as they confront the advocates of Western development, the indigenous peoples of the Andes have articulated their view of how to go about managing human relationships with each other and their land. Again, these principles are summarized as Suma Kausai or Suma Kwamanya. Suma Kausai being Quechua, Suma Kwamanya is Aymara. Huh?
Just
say that.
Kamanya.
Kamanya. Kamanya. Okay.
That's without a QU. They use a Q. They have a different phonetic system. It's right. Each one's unique. It's a whole process learning them.
Right. And the best translation of these terms are a life of fullness or good coexistence or harmonious life. And if you have any other translations to add to that, feel free to.
No, make it simple. I mean, it's like the simple translation is good living, but then there's all the content, and this is what you're sharing right now. So Yeah, there's like a translation from indigenous languages takes books.
Yeah.
Which is the great
Well,
thing about learning indigenous languages.
well, because there is like Sanskrit, the sounds are are frequencies, are
Hmm.
ancient frequencies,
Yeah.
very ancient frequencies.
Hmm.
So the principles then of summa causai or summa kamanya
Hmm.
are relationality, complementarity, and reciprocity, which is Aini.
Hmm.
And I would say Aini covers all three of those.
Hmm.
One of the most important main ideas then is relationality. Relationality applies to both humans and non-humans. So the Andeans conceive of the community as a unit of life made up of all forms of existence, not just a social structure made up of humans only. That's where it came to me so powerfully at Machu Picchu when tour guide said Pachamama is everyone, not just Mother Earth.
Mm.
Pachamama, so now to me, Pachamama includes the biosphere,
Hmm.
everything
Yeah.
that is Pachamama, not
Hmm.
just not just Mother Earth. I don't know why I
The
had
whole,
that stuff separated.
yeah, that's one of the things they like to teach, make how do you say, like emphasize more, and when they don't have a lot of time to teach something. This Pachamama is not just the earth. Earth is just Urake, and
Right.
the word Pacha, it's in fact means in a way time, so mother time.
Okay.
So it's like that includes all the stars, all the universe, all the cosmos,
Right. Right.
everything
So
in this mother time.
this mother time. Oh wow. Wow. Okay. So that just added a whole lot. So there is no division of nature and society in the Andean worldview. In addition, attention to spirituality implies acceptance of the importance of emotions. And we're going to remember that emotions just got coined in the 17th century.
Hmm.
So before that, it would be desire, it'd be passion, it would be sensation or
Hmm.
sentiments, and their relational nature, which, as we learned in the last couple of weeks, affectivity and all that is beyond.
Hmm.
This is the relational part of Summa Kusai,
Hmm.
Kausai.
Hmm.
So the wealth of relationships then provides good living for all concerned. So people develop in relationship and persons form relationships. This interdependence is absent in standard economics, which has no explanation for the origin of individual preference in its analysis. In addition, standard economics has a special model of the individual, which is that of a rational person with preferences that provide motivation. And the fundamental basis for this theory remains solitary or isolated individuals who are assumed to be the main agents in determining economic outcomes. And we can call this individualization. It's not truly, it's isolationism.
Yeah, I like that.
Indigenous economics cannot start with either individuals as the main focus or economic man as that type of individual because they emphasize relationships as fundamental to the societal organization. If each person is a formation of their unique relationships, then each person is unique. Valuing this uniqueness means that relational societies are more respectful of individual autonomy. And this is the word I like so much better than sovereignty.
Okay.
Individual autonomy than our individualistic societies who prize isolation and separation.
Hmm.
Relationships formed in standard economics are formed with contracts. A relational approach focuses on subjective understanding and valuing of other humans, persons, human and non human. So in Summa Kausai, community does not imply a lack of individuality, because individuality is expressed through complementarity with other beings in the group.
Mhm.
So what does this mean? Living on my farm now, your individuality with your interaction with the pigs is different than my relationship with the pig family or the goat family.
Mhm.
Or the cow family or the horse family, or and I've had a very good teacher of this, my puppy, my new puppy, Hallie, who was very attached to me and she is still very attached to me. But while I was gone to Peru, she loves spending time on Alexis's bed with her. And there's a whole different relationship with her and Alexis than there is with me and her.
Mhm.
That's what relationship is all about, is understanding there's different relationships. That's
Mhm.
the uniqueness. That's the differentiation. The close connection of kinship sustained by the Iroquois clan system were reinforced by an ethical ideal of autonomous responsibility taught from an early childhood in Iroquois culture. Kinship does not make everyone the same. It's relations.
Mhm.
In a relational culture, each person is assumed to be formed by his or her relationships. Even what I just said, Hallie has been formed. She's a different. I can see it, but she's still the same being. Her
Mhm.
relationship is different with Alexis than it is with me. If there is no universal human nature, if each person is formed by his or her unique relationships, then each one would be expected to be different. And this difference becomes the value of the individual. And that uniqueness is left to develop as the person wishes to have it developed. So Hallie and Alexis's relationship is unique and it needs to develop, and Hallie's and my relationship is unique and it needs to develop and it needs to be allowed.
Mhm.
It's not either you choose me or right. It's both
Mhm.
and. So if one searches for what might be universal, then among humans, it would be our shape. It would be our head, our two arms, our two legs, and the torso. But that's not real. I mean, what makes us unique is being upright, because all animals have the same. They have two
Mhm.
arms, two legs, and
Mhm.
a torso. They're just on four legs,
Yeah.
right? So another assumption in relational culture, this is going to take us forever if we don't go on, is in relational culture is that humans are not separated from other animals by language, by rationality, or even by a sense of self. As unique entities, and this is important. This is why if this takes us 3 weeks to get through, it will take us 3 weeks to get through.
Okay.
As unique entities, other than human persons can also join relationships.
Mhm.
From an Aymara scholar, both the Piqui, Piqui,
The what? Key.
Piqui,
Picky.
Piqui,
I never.
Piqui,
No, that's a new word for me. Picky. Yeah.
which would be the reason, and the Chuma, Chyuma, heart,
CHU. Choima. The heart. Mm-hmm.
Choima,
Choima. Mm-hmm.
right?
Choima. Mm-hmm.
And feelings are constitutive of the being and the doing of the social person, which is
Oh,
a
it's Picky. Yeah, Picky is the head. Yeah, Picky.
Peke is, so
Okay.
it's P. It would be more of a PE.
Yeah, the Aymara is really messed up because you don't have three vowels. So they write it with one, but then you make the sound with another. It's
Okay.
that's why the confusion. But
So
it sounds pek e, and there's like an insult. Asnu pek e is like donkey head,
yeah.
and
Which is
choima is the heart, which
really
is they
not
say oh it's also the liver or it's also the lungs. So it's but it's like the interior kind of like the.
right. The heart and feelings
Mhm.
are constitutive of the being and doing of the yaki, JAKQI, the social person. JAQI.
Hak e, hak e,
Okay.
hak e is the human, which is
Right.
like runa in Quechua, runa,
Okay.
which is what they call the Quechua language, runasimi, the
Okay.
language of humans.
So the hake, formed by a male and female, is not a solitary entity, but a being inserted into a multidimensional community, which is in turn part of a larger collective of humans and non-humans.
Mm.
What from a modern Western perspective would be an individual is therefore an unfinished state. His or her betterment is only possible within the collectivity and through interactions with others, both human and non-human.
Mm.
And these are the foundations of Huddleville's
Mhm.
relational communities. Absolutely. And we're not, by taking on this, we are not, what's the term? What's the anthropology? We're not taking on their culture. These are basic principles.
We're not culturally appropriating. What a stupid thing.
Exactly. We're not appropriating their culture. We're adopting the principles of relational life that work.
Yeah, and this cultural. Yeah, I don't want to make it. I'm gonna go on the tangent on that. So keep going, because otherwise we
Yeah.
won't have time.
So the Andean communities, or IUs, are relationally based and include non-human persons in a territory. So the territory would be the Maraca, the land area, the Marca.
Mhm.
And in Spain, it would be the Dehesa. In
Mhm.
Portugal,
Yep.
it would be the Montado,
Mhm.
right? So the expanding European settlers emphasized the benefits of solitary agents operating to create new economic activity. So it became the belief that civilized society is marked by political and economic individualism or solitarism, while savagery was marked by tribalism and collectivism.
Hmm.
So at this point in time, I absolutely choose to be a savage. As a consequence, efforts to assimilate the Indians into civilized society meant turning them into individuals by making them owners of private property. And indigenous peoples, in order to qualify as landowners, needed to adopt Christianity and accept private property and land.
Hmm.
The child rearing practices of indigenous peoples generate autonomous persons, meaning each was their own authority and found their own spiritual path while living with the tribe. This is what this is the biggest difference, is that New Age spirituality is teaching you walk your own path that's not in conjunction with anyone else. You're just your own little spiritual isolationist path that you've got to walk your own path that
Yeah,
has nothing to do with anybody else's.
yeah. That's how everybody takes it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, meaning the selection of their role in the tribe was not preordained. And although there was a sexual division of labor, an individual woman could decide to take up men's pursuits, and an individual man could decide to take up women's roles. So American Indian societies were democratic, and we're not talking about just North America. We're talking about the whole of the Americas. We're democratic societies of persons, all of whom were respected and able to participate. Even in the hierarchical houses on the Northwest coast, the head title holder was accountable to the people in his house. If he failed to carry out his duties, he was vulnerable to an arranged kidnapping or an outright execution. And that is what the Incas did. Their governors didn't succeed in keeping all of the people below underneath them fed, watered, and housed and clothed, and they were executed. Done. You're done. You're going away. We'll replace you with something.
A little radical, yeah.
That is a little radical, but that kind of gets the point across, right?
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that we're going to execute people by all means.
Yeah, we can learn a lot from it.
Yeah.
Replicating the exact same thing.
Yeah. By recognizing that people are always growing and developing. That's how we do it. So they did not have autonomy as part of basic human nature. They grew into autonomy by developing uniqueness. So autonomy is not a capacity, but rather a process one achieves through growth, which is basically spiritual. And lastly, the indigenous, even the Incans, they were very indigenous, even though they were hierarchical or oligarchic. They were indigenous, and they included everything in the environment as part of their society through relations.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept of mana in Maori
Mm-hmm.
Zealand culture provides an example of relational good generated and held by relationships. Mana is a subjective concept generated by relationships, describing the power of a person or a group to impact the lives of others, the condition of the land, and the strength of generations to affect each other. And some label their culture as an economy of mana and others as an economy of affection. And maybe that's what we need to also understand in our body making only two feelings. Maybe affection needs to be included. Maybe that's a word concept that needs to be included.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships generate relational goods through the cooperation of all people in the relationship who orient themselves toward the productivity of the shared good and the joint goals or projects of the relationship. They attend to the needs or desires of each other through communication in the process of generating the relational good or goods. So the relational goods such as mana, which would be righteousness or trust, and civil power are all subjective and held among the persons involved in forming them. In order to have a good relationship, each participant needs to understand how our other participants view the relationships and what they want to obtain from it. Some of the Haudenosaunee steps in creating agreement particularly address each side learning what the other side thinks. And the Haudenosaunee hosts provide a meal and give the visitors a place to have a good night's sleep. This is a time to informally learn what the other side is thinking about. And as part of the negotiations, the Iroquois or the Haudenosaunee would expect parties to meet in the woods outside of formal proceedings. And these meetings in the woods address the need to see things from the other person's viewpoint, or at least to understand their concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So the advice then for a hunter in this case is to patiently watch what animals do. And over time, hunters build up a vast store of experiential knowledge because they have seen the land in thousands of subtly different climatic and seasonal conditions. And based on that experience, they develop an intuitive understanding and can feel what the animals may do. And this is part of being a sensational human being instead of an emotional. I think the coining of the term emotional just totally was another separation. Because our skin is the biggest sense organ.
Yeah. That's sensational.
Yes. So one must be willing to invest the time and effort needed in order to understand the essential nature of any being and to deal with it on its own terms. One of the classic contrasts in treaty making between the Indians and colonists, as the colonists believed in written agreements that were then assumed to govern future relationships without modification. Is that true? Absolutely freaking true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's still. The Indians were insistent that frequent meetings were needed in order to maintain the relationship. This is what I am insisting with Jaime, is frequent meetings, not once for 2 hours every weekend. Frequent.
Yeah, the real love takes a lot of time, and we got to give it that time.
Yeah. And I think that's where with the marriage license, we get into this, right? Okay, let me say that again. Let's let that really sink in. One of the classical contrasts in treaty making between the Indians and colonists is that the colonists believe in written agreements that were then assumed to govern the entire relationship. So that marriage license that we sign in our mind governs the entire fucking relationship without having to actually do any work. But the indigenous concept is that we need to frequently meet. We need to frequently discuss this relationship. We need to frequently talk about this. We need to frequently have slow sex.
Mm-hmm.
But in this contract, we only need the marriage license and we're good.
Yeah. And that's what everyone fights for. That's
Always consult before deciding, and listen is an example of the Haudenosaunee concept. And these are concepts we need to adopt. We need to let go of the rigid concepts that we have of contracts governing a marriage license, governing our entire 20-year or 30-year life. And adopt some of these living concepts. So part of public discussion of issues is the need to deal with conflict in relationships. Dealing with conflict requires that some persons in a relationship can help assist others in separating out the emotional issues from the rational ones. And we've talked about that we've talked about that before in people who help in settling conflict early, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, we kind of close ourselves and go, oh, they're fucking fighting. And if they get too loud, I'm going to call the police and one of them's going to go to jail.
Mm.
Emotion cannot be eliminated, or passion cannot be eliminated, and it needs to be dealt with as it affects a relationship. So the Iroquois negotiation, or the Haudenosaunee negotiation ideal, begins with steps in which the parties address their own emotional or passion issues. If one side has suffered a loss, the other side will insist on a condolence ceremony to comfort those who have lost a member of their side. And when, in this case, a delegation reaches a village to prepare for negotiation, the hosts are obligated to provide a speech at the wood's edge consisting of the three rare words. Clear the traveler's eyes, ears, and throat of the thoughts and issues that they may have brought with them to the negotiation.
Mm.
It's not so much words as it is concept. Clear their eyes, ears, and throats of the thoughts and issues they've brought with them so that they can come as clear, right? It's not personal. So the Iroquois or Haudenosaunee insisted that a respondent be able to wait at least a day before responding. The heat and emotion created by coercion could be resisted with a period of cooling off. Time is needed for a good decision or response. The idea then in there that a hunter should only kill those animals who have offered themselves, and is an example then of this, a means of working by persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
The Iroquois or Haudenosaunee insisted that a respondent, accepting the other part as worthy of interaction, which is what this all does, applies differently at different levels. At the level of humans and the land, acceptance means respecting the right of animals and plants to see the world in their own manner. And in Africa, the lions and humans respected and avoided each other. And it was only after colonial powers disrupted their relationships by excluding humans from state-made parks that lions became dangerous to people.
Mm. Okay.
That's a very profound concept.
Yeah, totally.
It's the same. It would be the same with bears and mountain lions.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So to be wholly trustworthy and not wholly trusting, which would be the fifth agreement of the Toltecs, is to be skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
is to monitor the behavior of all participants in a relationship, including the mountain lion, including the lion, including monitor their behavior, watch them, understand them.
Yeah.
So the monitoring includes actions by non-humans who monitor human behavior to ensure that they are being treated respectfully.
Mm.
So it's also knowing that while I'm monitoring the pigs and the goats and the cattle and the horses, it's a realization that they're also monitoring me, which I have an exact example of this evening when I went through the gate to the horses and the cattle with a bucket of cubes.
Mm-hmm.
One of my horses just stood there and she moved, but her rear end was posed to me like, I'm going to kick the shit out of you
Okay.
if you're not. And she has kicked me before.
No.
Yeah, she has. She has. So really talking about this now is just like, wow, this is really real. This is right. She was monitoring me to assure that I would, while I was monitoring her.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's again the interaction of our neural fields.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, I'm going to kick the shit out of you. I'm here with my rear end 2 feet from the gate. And if you don't treat us respectfully, I will kick the shit out of you.
Mm-hmm. Monitor, huh?
But it was also me monitoring, you stay the fuck out of my space so I can deposit the cubes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's, wow. Yeah, this is really interesting. So an Indigenous elder said that if tribal members began to care for each other, we would then know that settler colonialism has been defeated. So as our Udallville relationship societies get going, we are defeating colonialism, settlerism.
Mm.
And one of the characteristics of a social relational subject is that the personal relational subjects who have joined together care for each other. And this is the biggest hurdle in this developing relationship with me and Hyman, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're overcoming this colonial settlerism.
Mm.
It's really, when you strip everything away to look at this, it's really interesting. So the Haudenosaunee seek to resolve relationship problems through the use of principles of negotiation that are initiated to create a council fire in the council house, right? And the goal of the negotiation process is to have all parties link arms together and assure that their minds are one. Their language of kinship extends upward to describe other levels of relational agents, and humans and families establish relationships with non-humans in the territories that they inhabit. So the hunting territories of the Algonquin peoples are a good example of this. And these family hunting area combinations are led by a head hunter. Members of the family agree that the head hunter will lead them, and such leaders then work to coordinate the creation of relational goods on the landscape. These family leaders are expected to know the beings of the landscape so well that their advice is sought by family members going out. And the leaders do not coerce their family members, and their authority and knowledge are then followed. The relational goods of trust, love, and solidarity support the development of mutual reciprocity, or economies, among the humans and the non-humans in the territory. The we relationship lasts and develops over time, and these models can be also called kin-centric ecology and not blood kin. We have to understand that it's not blood kin.
Mm-hmm.
After a family household unit is a village, after that, a family household unit then becomes a village, and all are committed to the maintenance of the village. And so they need to assure that equity exists among all people of the village, both as individual persons and as social relational subjects. So equity contributes to creating a fully reciprocal we relation. And I think that needs to be described in INI, is that it's a we relation. Because even the spiritual teachers like Violo he does not describe a we relation.
Okay.
He does not. He does not. He talks about I me, but he doesn't talk about a we relation.
Wow.
For all the communalism, then, there is room for personal maneuver, for radical autonomy of individuals, of persons, but not isolationism.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the foundations of things we have to understand. So an example of strong relational goods is the persistence of the goods identified by the Iroquois League or the Haudenosaunee League. Ganawida, the peacemaker who is credited along with Hiawatha and Jagonase with the founding of the League, provided 3 words to describe the relational goods that would result from following the principles of good relationships. And these 3 words have been translated in various versions. The first word connects health and peace. Peace being generated by organized bodies of groups and persons. Health is being the sanity of mind and health of everybody. And the second connects equity among persons with righteousness in conduct and thought, and its main focus is on justice. And the third describes power in a civil sense, that would be civil or spiritual authority resulting from ceremonies and interactions. So we weren't given the words, but these are what would result from these 3.
Mm-hmm.
So the ideas of solidarity and subsidiarity seem to apply to relational economics also. Solidarity is one of the relational goods that bind relational subjects together. And the principle of subsidiarity is that social functions are addressed at the level where they are best performed. The concept of peoplehood is important and comes from the Native American philosophies that are based on the understanding of relationships, the interrelationships between human beings, animal creature beings, plant beings, and societies, the cosmos, the spirit world, and the function of other natural and even catastrophic occurrences. Indigenous economics also had ceremonial cycles for self-determination and livelihood. Because ceremonies reinforce the relational goods of all relational agents, placing ceremony first and connecting to livelihood makes sense. So when carrying out a ceremony, members of a community act to reinforce the relationships in which they participate. And ceremonies both connect people to the cycles of the land and reinforce the roles of the people in the social structure. So as we adopt these principles, as again, we're not adopting their culture, which is their ceremonies. We're going to have to create our own ceremony. We're going to have to form our own ceremonies, and each IU will form their own ceremonies and culture. And there can be. We'll get to this probably later. Is how the. We'll get to this. Livelihood depends on relationships with territory. Leadership also depends on supporting relationships, and particular characteristics of leadership are the importance of peacemaking and having leaders defer to the judgment of the group through consensus decision-making. And here I would also bring in the concept of dissensus, because our consensus right now is what we know. Dissensus is what we don't know. So we have to go investigate to bring new.
Okay.
And as people adapt to the land, they develop a land tenure system to define the connections of social roles to the land, and their territory becomes their place. So how long does it take for people to become indigenous to their place? Among the Haudenosaunee, villages moved in the forest about every 30 years, which would be a Saturn cycle. A long rotation of shifting cultivation. In the desert Southwest, people moved in an annual cycle dominated by the seasons. In the Pacific Northwest, people organized into houses with exclusive territories and control over fishing sites. Their seasonal round was determined by the salmon migration. And people find then a social organization that fits with the ecosystems they use. And they modify the ecosystems to make the relationships better for all beings. That's what permaculture is. And it's not focusing on that. We're modifying our ecosystems to make the relationships better for all beings who are willing to cooperate and contribute to the relationships.
Okay.
That's the part I've missed so far. And time has a circular character as demonstrated by the medicine wheel. And so the past is to connect it to the present and the future by the enduring signs on the land that have meaning because of what has gone before and what continues. So then place becomes embedded in culture, just as people have become embedded in the landscape. And I think that's where we'll stop tonight. Next week, we'll go into territory and land tenure systems of indigenous economics, relational societies.
Okay. So part 2 of indigenous relational economies, territories. Yeah. Okay. Wow, it's a long teaching, and like everything here takes a long time, and it takes a lot of patience and a lot of work. And I like when you say we have to do the work.
Yeah.
So everybody wants this easy spirituality, this easy solving, just buy it and have it. And
not
we talked about that in other sessions. Many sessions ago. If you want to check that out, like it's within our first 100 sessions. We think we have a lot, but you know how many Joe Rogan podcasts there are? They're like 2,000 something.
Yeah.
So we're still kind of
we're young. It's all a process.
Yeah. It seems like a lot, but there's still a lot more to come. So come next week as we continue this specific conversation, and wish you lots of blessings without wanting to extend anymore and bore you anymore. we'll come back next week, and check out alohainidowliving.com if you want to be part of this investigations team.
And this is the foundation. This is absolutely the foundation of Uddlevilles.
Yeah.
Relational societies. Relational orgasmic societies.
and that incorporates every single aspect in life. Nothing is left out. So if you're wondering, worrying, I'm not sure if I like this, I'm not sure if because I like this or I don't, well, you cannot solve something without solving the whole.
Exactly. So yeah.
We're solving the whole. That's what we're doing. Yeah. We're striving. That was the word I was looking for. Striving to solve the whole. So that's what alohainidowliving is. alohainidowliving.com. Check that out and come back next week for part 2 of this conversation. Thank you for being here. See you next week. Waterfalls of blessings.